everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to our August 25th, 2020 regular session board meeting of the Joplin Schools Board of Education. Can I please have a roll call, Pat? Actually, let me stop. I think the first thing I want to do is go to our 2020 tax rate hearing. Dr. Langford.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll pull my mask down so you can hear just a little bit better. And Eric, if you would go to that one screen we just looked at, and then we're going to go to a PowerPoint, and then we will refer back to the PowerPoint in the levy part. But every year we are required by the state of Missouri to set a levy prior to September the 1st, and we've got all the documents ready to submit to both counties, Newton and Jasper, of the levy that we'll be asking you to approve a little bit later. If you look, this is from our state auditor, and every school district in the state of Missouri, any taxing entity that has a property tax levy will have something similar to this as it would relate, whether you're a county, an ambulance district, or what have you. And she sends something out in early July, and we work through that. We enter new data. So if you would roll down through that just a bit, it's several pages that we go through, and you're starting with what the levy used to be, and we're working through that. And then I want to go right on down. Let's go just a little, hold it right there. And so what it does, it comes in, and what you are seeing there are the numbers of the new assessed valuation that we enter in, and that becomes the active numbers from which the calculations are done. So if you take a look at this, if you look back, we had a significant growth in assessed valuation this year, largely because of the redevelopment zone now is no longer, though taxes were being paid, they were going to the city to satisfy bonds that were issued back in 2012, 13, along in there. And so as a result of that, we had a significant increase. We did have to work through an understanding process with the county, and we involved the state auditor's office, and they also involved the Missouri Tax Commission because they had not counted it as new construction. And it should have been, the statute's very clear, it should have been because we have never had it on our tax rolls. And so we got that all worked through. They were very good to work with, and we really appreciate the help that we had with Charlie Davis over there, and then also with Steve McIntosh and the assessor's office and what have you. It was just an understanding we achieved that. So we come through, and then if you would scroll to the bottom, there's a calculation, and all of these are generated by the state auditor's office. It's not Ron Langford that's doing it. We only agree or disagree, or we make corrections, and we have the options to change the data. Like, for instance, we had submitted one, and then at your board meeting when you sold the general obligation bonds, then we had exact numbers, very minuscule change. It actually lowered our levy minusculely, but we have it, and so the 29th of July was the update of what we're working through. So we can scroll through that and lose you in the process of trying to scroll through the screen. But this data is on the website. Anyone in the public that has an interest that wants to take a look at that, or if you want to, can see this is what you have. If you would now go, Eric, to the PowerPoint, what we've done here is we've condensed the data that we have scrolled through. And this is a copy of the public notice that was printed in the Joplin Globe. I believe it was like 10 days prior. It was on a Friday, and then with Tuesday. And it has to be done 7 days prior to this meeting tonight. So we were out 10 days, so we were fine. And what that does, it shows you, it's a public notice of what we intend to recommend to the board, what it will generate in taxes, and how this would compare with the prior year. So we took a look at all those things, and we will be recommending later in the meeting that we will continue the same tax rates both for debt service and for operating as we had last year, because there was a commitment to the public that the bonds would not increase the tax rate. And even though the debt service, we could have increased the operating, we believe that it's very important that we honor that commitment that we have made. And because of the new money that has come in because of the redevelopment zone, we will be predicting about a $2 million shift of money that was going somewhere else now coming to the school district. Now, ironically, Newton County had a slight decrease in assessed valuation. Jasper County had a slight increase in the assessments of property that had been assessed in prior years, but we had almost a $10 million decrease in personal property. So I don't know if cars depreciated or there were some businesses that may have closed. The inventory that's in a business is the personal property. Overall, we had a very modest net gain. We would have been allowed to collect 2.3% more in local taxes than we collected last year on the existing property that was taxed last year because of the consumer price index. So we could have raised our levy 3 cents, and as far as the state was concerned, it would have been the equivalent of last year because you are allowed CPI, but we're electing not to do that. And the good thing is the increase, the money now that will be coming to us. Now, right now, we projected about a $2 million decrease in state funding, so it's kind of a wash, but we've had these discussions in the budget. So this is what we will be talking to you about. If you would go on, we will refer to the next 3 slides when we come back to the deal, but if you see the arrow that's there on the bottom, because this is an even year, the board would have the authority to raise the rate to $3.16, or 0.5 cents actually, 3.165. We could do that. If you would go to the next item, this is the debt service. Now, the debt service has always been more than 91 cents, our capacity that we could levy, but there's really no benefit to doing that because all this is saying if you levy $1.19, then you would accrue your full 1 year's balance that you are allowed to have. Well, there's no benefit to doing that. We're fine in our cash flow and debt service. So it could be $1.19, and then if you will go to the next page, what we're showing you is that we're going to recommend the board to approve, and this will be submitted to each county. This one happens to be, show Charlie Davis's name up there. We have one that will go down to Newton County with the appropriate name there, and the data has been changed down at the bottom to fit the Newton County portion. But we will be recommending to you that though we could levy $1.19 6 in debt service, we will continue the 91 cents that you have historically done since the bond issue took place back in 2014? No, 2012. So they've been able to hold that 91 cents. We could levy $3.16. If you take $2.75 plus 3 cents, that's how we get the $2.78 levy that we had last year for operating. So this is a quick overview for the benefit of the board or any public that might want to have any questions clarified.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Does anybody have any questions of Dr. Langford concerning our 2020 tax rate hearing? I would entertain a motion to adjourn to regular session.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Derek. Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we move to our regular session. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you all. That takes us to our regular session, and may I have a roll call, Pat?
Lori Lester.
Here.
Derek Gander.
Present.
Dr. Joseph.
Here.
Jeff Coe.
Present.
Dr. Debbie Ford.
Present.
Brent Gordon.
Present.
Derek Vermont.
Here, thank you, Pat. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a few changes to our agenda this evening. I would like to add to our regular agenda items 6 and 7. We would add 2 action items to the regular agenda that are time-sensitive and impact services to our students. The first of which is a social worker, the second of which is a contract with Phoenix Home Healthcare for private duty nursing. With the addition of items 6 and 7, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, everyone. That brings us to my honor to report our celebrations. So, our outstanding new special education administrator, is she here?
Yeah, right.
All right. I was going to say, hey, I know this person. This
Yes,
is
you
pretty
do.
cool.
Yes,
So,
you do.
the Missouri Council of Administrators of Special Education, MOCASE, has named Megan Klosterman, Joplin Schools Director of Special Education, the MOCASE 2020 Outstanding New Special Education Administrator. The award is designed to recognize exceptional directors who have been practicing in the field of special education for 5 years or less. MOCASE officials will travel to Joplin to present the award to Megan this week. The local presentation will be recorded and shared during the 43rd Annual Special Education Administrators Conference that will be held virtually this year. Way to go, Megan! All righty. We are partnering to protect Missouri schools. SEMA acquired $2 million 2 million masks. I'm so focused on
$2 million
money. It's
masks.
terrible. I need to get over that. Acquired 2 million masks to distribute to schools statewide. Joplin Schools partner with CFI Logistics to deliver over 64,000 masks to schools in the southwest region of Missouri. A total of 16,000 masks went to Joplin Schools students and staff. We certainly thank SEMA and CFI Logistics and our administrative team that participated in that effort. Monica Reynolds is our choral director. She was recently honored as the Outstanding District Director for the Southwest Region by the Missouri Choral Directors Association. Recipients of this annual award are nominated and voted on by colleagues within their district. Congratulations, Monica. Annual bus inspections. The Missouri State Highway Patrol has completed the 2020 school bus inspection program. For the 24th consecutive year, Joplin Schools has a 90% or higher rating for the district's bus fleet. We congratulate our garage staff who work so hard behind the scenes every day so our students travel safely. Great job to those guys. National History Day, Making History. Joplin Schools is pleased to announce that Mrs. Heather Van Otterloo, South Middle School, has been selected as one of only 98 teachers for a National History Day Summer Professional Development Program. The new course highlights and explores digital resources available at the Library of Congress to develop and support historical argumentation. This course is a feature of NHD's membership in the Library of Congress's Teaching with Primary Sources (TPS) consortium. Great job to Ms. Van Otterloo. Great job. 98 teachers in the country, and she's one of them. Sparkling new technology. Eastmoreland Elementary is very grateful for the generous donation of 50 new Chromebooks. The computers were provided by Sparklight, formerly Cable One. Thank you, Sparklight. That's fantastic. We're buying some of those Chromebooks later tonight.
Yes, we are.
So we appreciate
Anybody else
all.
wants to donate? That's okay. too.
Absolutely, we will take those donations. Thank you all so much. Tops Noodle Knob. Gosh, does everything have to be a tongue twister for me? I can barely read. While many meetings and activities this year were virtual, the district's new teacher orientation program, TOPS, met in person. Participants had a little nutty fun when learning the nuts and bolts of teaching for Joplin schools. The new teachers are a welcome addition to Eagle Nation and will do great things for our students. Looks like they're having fun.
Well, we appreciate Ms. Mwangi demonstrating 6 feet of social.
Is that Ms. Mwangi? Look at her. That's quite a balancing act.
Cannot
Great job.
confirm nor deny the image on the screen.
Do not recall.
Great, yeah. She doesn't know what we're talking about. All righty, fair enough. Then we have a back-to-school picture, and certainly there was a nice write-up in the Joplin Globe about Joplin schools returning to school. One of those pictures made the Globe. There may have been others, but we see different folks seeing the different facets of returning to Joplin schools. We're glad to be back in session, and that is worth celebrating.
Yep. And I have 2 more if I could add,
Please.
Sherrick, that we didn't get in, but I have a visual. This is an example of the water bottles that Missouri American Water donated for all of our students, because part of our protocols, we're not using our water fountains traditionally, so every student got a bottle from Missouri American Water.
Wow.
And also, I did not bring one, but Johnson, Voorhees, and Martucci donated the gaiters so that our students have even another mask option. And Heather, I think,
Someone has
yeah,
one.
Heather's sporting one tonight. So we want to thank them for their donation as well.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Thanks to everyone. So that will take us to our Board of Education Finance Committee. I'm on that committee, as is Dr. Court and Mike Joseph. We had a meeting just the other night. Would anybody like to take the lead on that?
Well, Dr. Langford did a great job explaining it. The only thing that I would add is the decision that we make this year stands for 2 years, correct?
With the exception, there could be a modest adjustment because of CPI, or if we continue to see a little bit of reduction in our assessed valuation because of personal property or assessed valuation, then it could be, like I used the 3 cents, if you compare to last year and we were not in that, it would be modest. But we could not go the full amount of what we would be allowed until you get back into an even year, which would be 2022.
Thank you for clarifying.
And to the public, that conversation dovetails back into the presentation Dr. Langford provided concerning our tax rate hearing matter. That was the primary subject of our finance committee. That takes us to our Board of Education Policy Committee. Brent Jordan and I serve on that. Brent, do you have anything you'd like to offer?
Sure, I'll just offer that there are 10 policies for first reading tonight. They come from a variety of places, a couple from the federal level, several from the state, and then some MSBA rewritings. But most of the ones before you tonight they all stem from the House Bill 604 from last year. So some of the things that are new law that we'll have to modify our policies because of. So
Thank you, Brent. Does anybody have any questions concerning our finance or policy committee reports? That'll move us into our superintendent's data report. Dr. Moss.
Yes, and the first item, I believe we have Mr. Chad Greer, and I think I saw some other people following you around. And they're going to give us an update of our Kelsey Norman edition.
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here this evening. We've been diligently at work behind the scenes. We've met with administrators and staff, several meetings on both Kelsey Norman as well as Dover, and we're making great progress. Tonight, though, we're going to be bringing you an update on Kelsey Norman, and we're anticipating a broader update at the end of next month, at next month's Board of Education meeting on Dover Elementary School. So tonight, we're just going to specifically focus on Kelsey Norman. So if we could jump into it, and is there a clicker? Oh, there's a clicker right in front of me.
You got it?
They hit it.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Michael Wishmeyer here, who's going to give you guys an update on progress to date on Kelsey Norman.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. The design team worked with Crossland to put together a little presentation to bring the board up to speed on what we've been doing in the background for Kelsey Norman. We started with some slides that you guys are probably familiar with from the board, from the bond package. So when we were originally raising funds, we started with 8,325 square feet. We've pretty much stuck to our square footage. The renderings, these are the original bond renderings. We've got a couple of changes that we've worked on, but right now we're in the planning phase, so we haven't updated our renderings. There's a couple changes that in one of the next meetings you guys will get to see. Very slight changes in the renderings. We've moved some windows around due to teacher response for cubbies, but we'll show you that when we get in plan. So a few weeks ago, we started with charrette 1. We came to them with the information you had from the bond package and started asking questions. We tried to figure out from the stakeholders how they use their space, what they envisioned for it, and tried to get as much information as we could from the actual users. That's one of our first steps is listening. We asked the teachers and administrative staff to think about spaces that they understand and spaces that they've used to see how that worked for them, pros and cons of living room spaces that they already have, because this Kelsey Norman project is fairly small, and we feel that the living room components are going to be a big part of bringing that building into the 21st century learning. We talked to them about Soaring Heights because it has the 3 living room spaces. Asked them how those functioned for them and took that input and tried to bring that into the Kelsey Norman. So at the end of charrette 1, we gave the teachers and administrators a little bit of homework. So they had a week to think about some of the questions we were asking as a design team. And we came up with that they needed certain spaces, they needed a think tank, how they wanted to use their living room spaces, and learned about their storage needs. So we went back to the drawing board, came back a week later, and we felt it was very important to remind everybody of some of the district guidelines that you guys implemented back in 2019. So you guys did a lot of homework and focused on the 21st century learning concepts, which open up spaces, let kids move, they're not locked in the classroom. We're trying to bring your vision to fruition in this building. So we came back to them, 3 classrooms, a sped room with movable walls, so if in the future that room needed to be 1 sped room or broken up into 2 spaces, you'd have flexibility. Started giving them some options on restroom and think tank layouts, worked with multiple furniture layouts to see what the teachers liked and which direction they wanted to go. So we worked through several plan options, some with open walls, some with just doors between classes, like up here. So this would be not a movable wall, just a wall with doors. So we gave them multiple design directions to go and got their feedback from that. So at the end of that charrette, we learned a lot about their storage needs, more about their storage needs. Because of COVID, all these classrooms need sinks for hand washing. Carrie and Dr. Moss were at several of these meetings making sure we were on track. And if anybody has any questions about any of these plans you see while I'm speaking, feel free to ask. Then we got to the 3rd charrette, dialing in on the space a little bit more. We still came in with a movable wall option and a fixed wall option. And I think we were presenting this as less of the 21st century design, less of 21st century learning. And all the teachers were unanimously on board with the open concept, which you have a classroom and a movable wall that can open into a living room space. So if you have a teacher that needs to break a couple of groups out, let's say she has a small group that needs to go outside, we have a learning space here that she can directly see. Sorry if I'm blocking anybody back here. The administrators and teachers liked a think tank area. It's got glass for views, so they can have a breakout meeting or have a teacher-parent meeting in a quieter environment. SPED has access to outside, and some of you might know that the garden program that's been implemented in Joplin schools is going to have a garden out here at Kelsey Norman also. They're very excited about that. We've got a lot of natural light coming from the playground area. So these classes circulate directly out to a playground space. We're working with Crossland and tying in the running track that comes right in front of this building. Each classroom has a sink, as we mentioned. Each classroom has teacher storage, which they really felt was important for their space. The SPED also has a calm room and its own utility function with mop sink, restroom, and a washer and dryer. So if they have any event, they can take care of their space. And we've tried to afford as much natural light as this site would accommodate. So the operable partitions in these classrooms, once we were able to show the teachers and administrators how they functioned, they were on board. So these movable walls can have write surfaces, tack surfaces. They're very functional and have good sound transmission coefficient, which is the geeky way of saying if you close the wall, it's quiet. It's a quiet wall. So if they closed it and didn't use it, they have an actual classroom. These walls function as a wall, but if you don't want it, it can be pushed out of the way. Movable furniture, and each classroom needed cubbies at this grade level so the kids can come in, unload their bags. These were some of the comments at the end of Charrette 3, and this is where we are right now. So Chad and Aaron are going to present our current budget. When we got to this phase, as we did when we came on board, we said we're going to do budgeting at every phase of this project to make sure your money's put in the right direction. So the budget numbers for this plan are in hand right now. So what we've done in this plan, we've got 3 classrooms that meet your district standards from your 2019 study. We've got the SPED spaces that the SPED teachers were on board for every part of this discussion to make sure they had the cubby space they needed and storage and functional. Living room breakout spaces with multiple presentation areas and bringing in the public too. So there's after-school events at this location and they needed a community space. So this is their community space. We've got storage for all the tables and furniture for the community space. I think that's where we are.
Yeah, the key thing that we spent so much time talking about was, you know, some of the needs that they identify as not happening in school. You know, if they have a PTO conference, they typically have it in the library, which creates some challenges for them in using the library. So it was, we spent a considerable amount of time just trying to really question them on ways that we can introduce this flexible and adaptable space that they can use for in multiple ways. And so I think it was a great dialogue, some great discussions with them, kind of challenged them on some ideas. And I think at the end, the plan that you see in front of you is kind of the byproduct of some of those conversations. And I think we're in a really good spot with that progress. So from there, what we did was we sent the information to Crossland, and Aaron Height is here to kind of talk a little bit more about that. But as an update, and I'm not sure why the text has shifted a little bit. Google Slides have loaded so much. But, the pre-bond budget that we put together was based on some kind of very preliminary information. And you can see the amount there that we had budgeted for the overall project cost was $2,936,000. I'm going to let Aaron speak a little bit to their current estimate of $3,126,000.
Yeah, so schematic design. In the industry, we call that the 30,000-foot view. So we're way up here, way before we start narrowing down. So this is just a broad spectrum of what we're going to look at in the end product. So what we did, we went back through all of our history of similar projects. There's nothing specified right now. We have a floor plan, we have a narrative, it gives us some detail, but not really enough detail to get into the weeds, into specifics. So we feel this estimate has a conservative approach. Also, if you look at the arrows, we've got about a 15% contingency. So that's not only construction contingency, that's design contingency, and that's owner contingency. The 5% basically on all three. So as Chad said, pre-bond budget was around 2.9. That was way up there. That was looking from outer space. Now as we're starting to have the charrettes and we're starting to narrow it down, we're starting to get down and focused in on what you actually need. So our current budget is right at 3.1, contingency included. So as you can see, do the difference between 3.1 and 2.9, I feel like we're right where we need to be, given the current situation of the 30,000-foot view.
And a lot of times you might speak to the process. Crossland, they don't just have one person in a room sitting there reviewing the budget. They use a lot of their.
So we went back through a lot of our past projects of similar size, similar complexity, and we reviewed those, and they're all over the place. We may have a 15,000 square foot building here, we may have a 5,000 square foot building there. We have a factor that converts it into where we need it. Also, the economy of scale on this one, if you look at the overall square footage compared to dollars, it's pretty high. That's just because we have a fairly small addition, and we're treating this as a single project, not a bigger bond project. So this is the project that we're dealing with, not the whole bond issue. So that's one factor you may want to look at on the budget. What we do on the front end is we go through and we take each one of these bid packages and we dissect it down. So bid packages over at the left-hand side of the page, demolition. We dissect that down. We figure out what all is going to be happening, whether it's shown on the plan, shown in the narrative, or what we feel the actual numbers will actually come out at. Same thing with cast in place concrete. Obviously, there's been no design yet. We base that off of past history and take an average, basically. We're not super high, we're not super low, but we are conservative. So each one of these line items is not just a square foot. We're not taking 8,392 square feet. We're really looking at the numbers. And I took off footings, stem walls, even site concrete, sidewalk square footage. We try to get down to where it's an accurate level of estimate at this point in the game.
Yeah, and I think the overall message, and Aaron and I, obviously looked at these numbers in great detail, making sure that we kind of both understood what the numbers represented. And I think at this point, we feel pretty good that there may be some conservative dollars still in there, that as the plans become more refined, we can see that conservatism kind of shrink down. And so based on where we're at today with the limited information that we have, and we're going to continue developing that information and update this before bidding again, but we feel pretty good about where we're at, and also considering the contingencies that are in place. Any questions?
I have a question, and you actually already answered it, but I don't know if it was in its entirety. But so, how has COVID changed the plan? I know the additional sinks in every room, but anything else as far as?
There's a couple other items that are going to change. So I think the school district has implemented some mechanical systems changes, like different filtering or different UV or ionization into the mechanical system, so that might be something that comes up into this project, because
Yeah, I
it
think
will.
we've got a meeting with
Dave tomorrow.
tomorrow to talk more about, those types of things and how we can better try to protect the students and occupants of the building, utilizing that filtration system.
I would like to say too, when it comes to furniture, one of the things we're noticing is when you have all tables in the schools, depending on the size of the table, that could limit you with social distancing, and we don't, hopefully, it'll be 100 years, and then those tables will all be replaced by the time we have another pandemic. But I think one of the things that in some of the schools where the desks are made in such a way that they can be put together to make a table for the kids, that's better off. And I know that's not what they're talking about right now, but that's been something we've talked about.
It is something we considered in our furniture layout. So the furniture budget is your budget in a part of this. There's a FF&E, furnitures, fixtures, as part of Aaron's budget. And you guys will come together with Carrie and figure out which furniture you're actually going to use at that point, like when the building's getting ready to be yours.
And that is a great point. That is not only construction cost, but that is FF&E. Look at the below the black line. Everything below the black line is your dollars. It's technology. It's everything it's going to take to finish out the project in its entirety, not just the building structure.
What about the ground?
Fencing is up.
No, go ahead.
I was curious, what kind of fencing is only 20 cents a square foot?
That's 20 cents on the building square foot.
Okay.
That's how it calculates.
You're like, I want some of that.
Yeah, that all adds up per building.
The ground site survey, there's no issues like there were at some other locations?
No, at this point, no.
I don't think we have a geotech on this site yet.
We do not. We do know there's going to be some stormwater quality that we're going to have to put in, which is why we have the very last line out of 33B,
Okay.
storm sewer and drainage. We are going to have to capture the on-site water and clean it, so to speak.
Yeah, the civil engineer is in the process of having a dialogue with the city to consider where we're building the addition is over an existing asphalt surface area. So the conversation is, well, this previously didn't allow water to penetrate and kind of control that runoff, and we're building the building on the same spot. So we're just really trying to refine what those requirements are going to be and try to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible. So I know if they were here, they'd provide you a better update, but I think where I last worked was they're still talking with the city about those requirements.
And so if we're going to build over that asphalt part of the playground, is there going to be another playground that's put in, or is that just taking part of the space out?
Yeah, we talked with, and I think if I go all the way back, sorry for going so quick, but from the original bond images, I think you can see that there currently exists 2 court areas. And when we talked with the teachers and staff there, that they felt like one would be sufficient.
Okay.
So we're just building over one essentially and making sure that the other one is suitable.
One more point to take in is the modular trailers that are up at the upper left will be moved out
Okay.
after this addition is complete. So it gains more space for playground.
Okay.
What's the estimated completion date?
For my reason, I got a very tiny schedule on this. Right now, Kelsey Norman, it looks like we're bidding in November and construction starting in December, and then a 7-month duration concluding on or around June 2021.
Thank you.
There is a little wiggle room contingency in there. Not knowing exactly yet what we're going to find underground with some of the existing utilities, but we're pretty confident that that schedule is good at this point.
Our goal is to start soon.
Exciting.
I have a couple, I don't really, what is the general conditions per matrix?
Sure.
You've got monthly fees there, and then the project requirements fee as well.
Absolutely. So general conditions is based on the original matrix that the architect and design team put together for our traditional interview, our interview process. So we had to put together a costing for our interview, and that's our general conditions, which includes our superintendent time, truck, trailer, things like that. Project requirements are items that we cannot bid out, but yet still need. For instance, trash dumpsters. You really don't know how many you're gonna need, so we have an allowance for that. Material handling. So whenever items come to the job, big semi-trailers come, who unloads that? So we have that. There's all these safety. Someone's gonna have to control safety on the job. Temporary fencing, items like that. You just can't bid it out, but yet you need it as part of construction. Clean up.
Yeah, when we originally went through the selection process for the construction manager, we asked them what their overall percentage of fee would be for overhead and profit, and then what their general conditions costs were. And then from there, we put together, those two pieces of information to kind of encompass the total fee for their project.
And as your owner's representative, we've gone through this budget with Crossland and grilled them about it. And this is where it landed.
Thank you for being here this time. Does anybody have any additional questions for these gentlemen?
Looking good.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready? Okay, our next item is our health and dental plan update. You will see that Shelley Todd has joined us at the table. And the next two items will be hers and Dr. Langford's, and we'll follow that with financial statements.
The health and dental report, we just have the first month so far, and we spent $503,267.11 of our budget. And the revenues are $430,124.44. And we're right in the middle of that 3-month time frame where we've collected the revenues for our 9 and 10-month employees back in April and May, and so you'll see that kind of decline that you're seeing, but nothing is, it's all expected, so it's kind of just continuing to hold its own. The disbursements for the health fund were $473,131.07, and again, those were pretty much on target with what we've been seeing. And the dental, we're still seeing a little bit of decline there, which was expected to take out some of that overreach. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
And then moving on.
On the financial statement, if we can get our single page up again that I like to refer to. Scroll up a little bit. And we'll make you go a couple more. Right there. Okay. We try to do the comparison with what was budgeted last year as far as the revenue was concerned and the expenditures as well. We did indicate at the last meeting, if you would look down at the state, if you look local, we're just on track with where we've been. Of course, our county money won't come in until the railroad utilities, and that will be a few months out. But we're down, compared to a year ago, just under $800,000 in state funding. But as I indicated at that meeting, there was a withhold of $123 million in state funding. All of that was done in 1 month, which that was done in the month of July. And so that's why we see that we are lagging behind in the state funding. We, this year, or this past month, We had quite a gain back, and each month we will see an increase, and hopefully by June, we will be at least back to within what was projected, less 123 million. And if we want to be real optimistic, based on the state revenue where it is right now, maybe that we could see that restored. I wouldn't bet on it, but that's the whole goal is we don't see another reduction there. So there's no surprise as far as the revenue was concerned. We might say also the sale of bonds, we're not going to let it skew the comparison, so we're kind of not showing it in the comparison, but we do have a sale of bonds that was consummated last month and deposited, and that money is there, the 25 million. It's referenced in A rather than putting it at the top to skew that. We will try to keep you posted on that. Did you want to say something?
Well, the 25 million, we're not going to see that till August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but my note was 25
Yeah.
million, we will be seeing that.
Yes,
because
down in, yes, exactly.
The money actually came in the, what, the 9th or the
13th, I think. We did get
of August.
500,000 in
Yeah.
July.
But we will not show that as in the top, but it will be reflected at the bottom. And in the same way on the expense, we will try to let you know how much of that money is expended as we move forward with the projects. And honestly, because this project will be completed hopefully by the start of the next school year, but that's 3 million and 25 million, and we're not going to be getting the other project started quite that quickly, so we're going to have that money sitting there. The unfortunate reality is it's not going to be earning very much money. Last year we earned over $1 million, and this year we'll be lucky to earn 100,000 just because of the drop in the interest rates. But there are no surprises at this point. The district overall financial condition remains solid as we enter into, get ready to go into the, hard to believe, the third month of the fiscal year.
Question for you. So the equipment that we approved in the last month for the COVID additional, we didn't know if it would be covered or not. I saw a note that it was going to be covered. Are the expenses in there, but the revenue's not? Or
Well, we haven't got the revenue because we've not filed for the reimbursement.
Okay.
And we cannot file for the revenue until we've actually spent
Got
it.
it.
And
Okay.
so we're not going to do it in bites. We're just going to wait till we exhaust the available
Okay.
and go get it all at one time. And so we will be approving some things tonight that will get us to the
cap?
we actually will get more money than we spent last month, which helps us with some of the things we'll be buying tonight or soon thereafter. So we have not applied for that money yet.
Okay. But the expenses aren't in there either?
They'll be in next
There's-
month because
yeah.
are they in this bill
They're-
list?
Yes, they're in this bill list.
So they won't show up till next month
Yeah.
on the expense side.
What's the approximate reserve percentage?
I'm sorry?
The reserve percentage, approximate?
Close to 40%.
Does anybody else have any additional questions concerning our finances? Pat, do we have any public comments this evening? Nobody wants to talk to us. That brings us to our consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve our consent agenda as presented. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That brings us to our regular agenda. That takes us back to our tax levy for 2020-2021 school year. Dr. Langford, this is now an action item.
Okay, we have it now as an action item, and if you can scroll back to the last page on that, there should be. This should be on the action item. I mean, can you go on down? Going down, going down. No, I want the other one, I'm sorry. I want the PowerPoint. This actually, if you have that, has the documents that will be going to both counties. And our president should be signing those tonight, and we will fax them tomorrow and then also put them in the mail. So we'll have them there. And what I want to do for this, if you would just go to the last page, because this is what we are asking you to approve. And the recommendation is that the Board of Education approve the tax levy in the amount of $3.6964, 3.6964 per $100 assessed valuation. And it will be allocated as follows. $2.75 will go to the general fund. The debt service fund will be 91 cents. And I will say this action item general fund and special services, 91 cents to the debt service fund, and then we're going to allocate .0364 to the capital projects fund. And the reason we do that is it does benefit us a little bit on the distribution of the railroad and utility taxes. So we get a cut of that we would not get otherwise. And then if you remember when we talked about the transfer, that we backed this out when we did the transfer, had your approval to do that in June, and that will be done again. So we're not trying to take money away from the operating, but it does benefit our capital projects fund by making that 3-cent deposit there. So the overall levy would be, which called operational, will be $2.7864, and the debt service will be 91 cents, 0.91. So I would ask, pending any, answering any questions you might have, that you consider the approval of this recommendation.
I'll make a motion that we approve the tax levies as presented for Jasper and Newton counties.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the administration's recommendation concerning our 2020-2021 school tax levy. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, and thank you, Dr. Langford and your team for keeping us to our promise to our community. That takes us to our accounts payable, and we'll stay with Dr. Langford.
Okay, the accounts payable, we do that. These are the bills that you're asked. There were some bills that were paid that were routine bills, and we try to pay in 2 months or in 2 weeks, and you have a differential of what was paid then and what we're asking for tonight. I always go back and say, how does what we're doing this tonight compare with what we did a year ago? Well, a year ago at this meeting, we approved $7.3 million. Tonight, we're asking you to approve $3.3 million. But we had a payroll that wasn't in that $3.3 million because this was calculated on August the 18th. The payroll didn't hit until the 20th. So we understand the ebb and flow. But I will say the overall expenditures of the district, and a lot of it has to do with the shutdown of school for the 2 months last year. And we've not spent quite as much as we would have been normally have spent at this time. Now, I've asked Shelley to come back up and to discuss with you. If you remember, we changed our accounting system. And I will say, I'm learning to navigate. Under the old system, I knew where I could go to get some particular information. I'm having to learn about this. But the great thing that we're already seeing the benefits of the system to be able to generate reports such as check reconciliation. We can automatically pull those things out when we start getting ready to revise the budget that we will do again in October. Instead of trying to remember everything we did, we can actually hit a button, and she showed me this, and she's kind of giddy about that, and she should be, because of the amount of work that we don't have to do to get the information for you. But there are changes. So I've asked Shelley to talk with you very briefly about the bill list, because this bill list looks different than what you have had in the past. I think it's a much better thing because you're not just flooded with things. The vendors listed once.
Alphabetical.
Each thing. It really helps you point out. So Shelley, would you care to share a few thoughts about this?
Yeah, I asked Eric to show like what the list used to look like, just a refresher of, it was just kind of all thrown on a page and really hard to read and hard to see everything. You had to just kind of read every line. Now, if you go, Eric, go back over to the new one, And if you would go down to page 12 of that full document. And I'm just going to kind of show you, like, I was going to focus in here on Sherwin-Williams. It'll show you, like, the check number that was written over on the side, and then it gives you, like, the check date and the vendor name. And it's only repeated one time. And then it shows you what checks were written in that time frame. So to me, it's a lot easier for you to kind of look in and see what it is. We are making some adjustments. I mean, it was very new to us, obviously. And we have two different people in accounts payable, so, each kind of did their own little thing at first, and we're kind of getting some routines down and putting in, like, an invoice description. What we discovered, if you got too wordy in that invoice description, it would kind of go over and feed into the amount over there. And so it would tell you that it was going to wrap the text, but then when you tried to print the report, it really didn't wrap that text just like we wanted it to. So, and then we were having some where the invoice description, it was already on the PO, it was on, all the documentation, the invoice, so she wasn't really entering it again. So we're going to try to do just a 1 or 2 line description, just so you can easily see what's going on. And if you go on down, Eric,
And I might say, if you would go back, that's why there were not descriptions, because 2 people were
Yes.
doing it. So this is our first time really out of the box with this, and so we're going to get that in sync. But our goal was not to drown you in information, that you can look at the vendor and you will have every check listed with a description of what that was for. And so this will look a little bit better. You'll have some more information, but yet Joplin Supply just comes right out at you. Joplin Fire Protection comes out at you.
yeah, it's a lot easier to read. And we also, we discovered that there's some checks that we don't necessarily, I pay stuff online with, like, the payroll taxes and stuff like that to the state of Missouri and to the IRS. So those items, it wants to generate a check, but it really, there's no reason to generate a check. So we have this one list in here, I think he's showing it to you right now, where those are going to be, they're kind of what we're calling a manual check. So it's basically, it's the software, you have to tell it to write the check, but we're not physically writing the check, but we wanted to give you a list of those as well, so that so that'll be a separate item that's going to be out there and you'll see. So I just wanted to explain how that was all working. Are there any questions?
It's a lot better.
Yeah,
I see a
and
lot
as-
of scholarship payments at the end of the list, so
Yes.
we're grateful for those.
Yes, yeah, this is the time of the month, or the time of the year where a lot of those are going out.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. Does anybody have any questions for our finance team concerning our accounts payable?
I would like to make one comment. The transition that we've been through requires lots of work, and I just wanted to say thank you to Shelley for all the work that she's put in to help us make this transition, because we believe this is going to be a real asset to us as for generating information, pulling information more quickly, and analyzing the resources so that we can best use them to serve our students. We believe that. But for that to happen, to move completely from one system to the other, just as we know if we move on our student information systems to switch to Power School, it takes a lot of work. And Shelley's taken ownership of this thing, and I'm not so sure that she doesn't have a room up here that we don't know about that she sleeps in, because she's here all the time.
I've got a question. In the previous way, it was all listed by school or building it went to. Do you have that same capability now to say the Sherwin-Williams, by example, what was for Irving?
I will have to work on that. We can do it by account code of how we
Okay.
charge that stuff out.
Okay.
So we could probably generate something. I'll work on it.
Just a question, because that's, you could see a school together, and they're all
Okay.
different things, but here, is the bug spray going to every school, or is that just the high school? Is that, those
Yeah,
type of things?
Most of those are kind of, they're spread out across the schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would certainly entertain a motion to pay our bills.
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve our accounts payable as presented. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Dr. Langford. That brings us to our school building Wi-Fi expansion package. Dr. Saketa?
Okay, Eric will help me with this, but just to give you a little bit of background, as you know, you can assume that when we have a lot more students online with virtual learning, especially virtual learning, and then also expanding our fleet of Chromebooks to 6th and 7th grade, which you voted on, which we'll be getting those in September, and I think everybody's heard about the worldwide shortage of Chromebooks, and we're supposed to get ours in, I think, the second week of September. We want to make sure that all of our kids who have our devices, as well as the teachers too, if necessary, could have access to our Wi-Fi 24/7. And I think the necessity of what's going on with COVID right now is really helping us get something that we'd like to have had a long time ago, and that is to have all of our parking lots in all of our locations where we have school buildings for a student and their parent, or a student if they can drive on the weekend or at night, if they need to get on, download some documents, watch a video or whatever they need to do, be able to get on, and us also feel the comfort of knowing it's filtered through our system like they were here with safety precautions. And so one of the things that we're doing right now, we just, I'll let Eric tell you about the specifics, but we just got JHS online, and we're really excited about the reach outside the parking lot and even across almost to the road or across the property. And with that, doing that in some of our real small locations where they have small parking lots in some of our schools, we feel like we can get a really good reach out. And we're coming in phases. We've got JHS pretty much locked down pretty well, and we've got 4 other schools we're putting online. And eventually, in the next month or less, we'll have all the schools online. So, Eric?
We had originally gotten a grant from HP Aruba. That's the system we have in our building right now with the Wi-Fi controller and everything. And then they reached out to us and they gave us a grant for 6 access points, all the mounting stuff, some switches. It totaled about $26,000. So that got us started. That's what we did the high school with, and what we're doing the other 4 buildings with. Heather can attest to the signal distance. She lives across the street from the high school, and she gets almost a full strength in her house. So we're doing really good there. The next 4 will be McKinley, North, Irving, and Eastmoreland. Going off of the survey last March, those were some of the parents, when they took the survey, said that they didn't really have home Wi-Fi. And so we went off of that, and that's where we're starting. But every building, every school building will see the parking lot Wi-Fi, including Dunaway, and the admin building, so we'll reach out to this neighborhood a little bit too. And so it's installing 21 access points total. And we did reach out for a quote on that, and then we got a little bit of a guesstimation price for the labor from TEC, but that's going to kind of be pieced out.
I move that we approve the purchase of the school building Wi-Fi expansion package.
Second.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Jeff. I do have one question. You know, how do we secure the Wi-Fi that is, like, I mean, is that an issue at all?
It's got a password on it, so you'll have to know the password. We don't normally give that out to anybody. And then it will end up going through our system, and then, we'll occasionally check for like rogue devices and stuff to make sure that people aren't into our system.
I want our community to know that I'm a big believer that we need this to reach our students, and I'm very much in favor of it, and that's probably a concern for everybody whenever you're extending your bandwidth or broadcasting ability or Wi-Fi or whatever it is. I am not an IT guy. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Dr. Blankford.
Oh, later down the road, when we do budget adjustments, this will be included. But the good news is indicated here, some of the CARES money that was made available will fund 50% of that. So we really thought it would cost more than $40,000. And so the $40,000, or if it's $41,000, once we get the cost for this, then we can submit to the state, and those monies will be made available to Joplin schools, one half of that cost.
Thank you, Doctor. Anybody else?
I was going to say too, also for the security part, you have to have our certificate in order to join our internet. So if that's not on your device, then it's a little bit harder to get onto our Wi-Fi.
Thank you, Eric. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That brings us to our Irving Elementary Chromebook purchase. Ms. Cantwell, welcome.
Yes. Irving, through a needs assessment with their Title I funds, and before we even had the CARES Act money, are purchasing 160 Chromebooks for their building, which is awesome. After moving the ELs to their building, it increased their allocation by a lot, so.
If I, not to be terrible to you, but I believe it's 180 Chromebooks.
Is it 180? Oh.
Yeah, even 20 more, so what?
I forgot to bring the thing with me.
Yeah.
And would you like for me to go ahead, the two that we added, would you like for me to go ahead and talk about those now, or are they after number 6 at the end?
We have put those at the end of it. Are those your items?
Mm-hmm.
We probably need to vote on this.
Let's go ahead and vote on this, and then we will go out of order to accommodate Ms. Cantwell. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of our Chromebooks?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the purchase of Chromebooks for Irving Elementary. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and so I am perhaps incorrectly, but going to do it anyway, going out of order, moving to item number 6 from item number 4. And item number 6 is the employment of a social worker at McKinley.
So and I wrote about this in the Thursday board update, but we received a 3-year grant of $104,000 each year, I think. And for our students that qualify as homeless under McKinney-Vento, which means they are doubled up, they may be living in substandard housing, or I always forget the other one. There's another one. Anyway, we will have a social worker who can help with enrollment, if they don't have their appropriate documentation to enroll, that will also help connect families to resources in the community, and that is part of that grant. So we feel fortunate. Right now, as of today, we have 102 students that qualify as homeless. Last year, it was between 35 to 50 at this time, so we are significantly.
So this was your turn to correct me. I mentioned McKinley as an elementary, and that was wrong. This is McKinney-Vento, which is a grant process that you
McKinney-Vento,
clarified,
yes.
and I appreciate. This was not in our board packets earlier. This is an amendment to our agenda because this is time-sensitive and provides impact services to our students. And so we thank Ms. Cantwell for bringing this to us this evening. Does anybody have any questions concerning the addition of a social worker through the McKinney-Vento grant process?
And we are actually contracting with Ozark Center for one that they have, rather than hiring it as our own employee.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. We approve the hiring of the social worker through the grant as presented.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Brent. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the employment of the social worker as presented. I'm not sure I'm stating that correctly, but is there any further discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, and Ms. Cantwell, that brings us to the contract with Phoenix Home Healthcare for private duty nursing.
We have a student at the high school that has round-the-care nursing who is coming back to school after being out for some time. And so she's going to be coming back for a few hours a day, and we are contracting with them for the nurse that already knows about her needs, that works with her in the home because of the needs that she has.
Yeah, and let me help Ms. Cantwell. This student and I'm stating exactly what she just said, but the student has an established nurse through Phoenix Home Health who is already familiar with the student's unique, nuanced, and critical health needs. So the idea, it provides an hourly pay of $36 per hour for the nurse, who will be paid with state special education funds. And the district will bill Medicaid to recoup some of the expenses incurred. So the recommendation from administration through Ms. Cantwell is that that the attached contract with Phoenix Home Healthcare be approved by our board. Again, this is not in your materials tonight, board members, but certainly something that perhaps you've now received it.
We got it.
But it was not originally in our online packet. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the contract with Phoenix Home Healthcare for private duty nursing. Is there any additional discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Cantwell, very much. And thank you, board, for indulging me going out of order on our agenda. That brings us to our policy updates for first reading approval. Dr. Mons?
Yes, Mr. Jordan gave us a good synopsis of the 10 policies you have for first reading. And you'll notice in the descriptions under data that most of them are related to House Bill 604. Some also dealing with some federal law change and some reporting requirements for immunization. And we have all of our different departmental specialists here if you have specific questions, but we would recommend these are approved for first reading.
Thank you, Doctor. Do I have a motion to approve first reading on these policies that are listed in our regular agenda number 5, A through J?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brent. It's been moved and seconded that we approve these policies for first reading. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That brings us to item number 6, which is now number 8 in your home agendas. And that is consideration of parameters for regular Joplin High School schedule. Dr. Mullins.
Yes, so in July 30th, the board approved the reentry plan, which included the AB every other day school schedule for grades 9 through 12. And Dr. Gilbreth is here with us tonight. Steve, if you want to go ahead and come up in case there's questions about that. So we said during that motion that we would continually monitor and look for adjustments as our data and the local realities evolve. So we started school yesterday, and in your packet, I had given you the data as to the date you got your packet. So you have in your packet August 19th, our Jasper County, our Newton County, and our city of Joplin data, because we take in portions of all 3 of those in our district. And so at that time, we had Jasper County at 110 positives, Newton at 148, city of Joplin at 77, and I said in the packet I would update you for today. So today, Jasper County has 106. No, I'm sorry, today they have 95, that was yesterday. Newton County has 146, and city of Joplin has 62. I also gave you the hospital census for COVID-related area hospitalizations. They were at 30, today they're at 32. And I checked with Health Department Director Dan Pekarik, and he said their capacity is between 55 and 60. And he was going to join us tonight, but because of his workload, he wasn't able to tonight, so he did send some comments that I will share with you. But he felt like looking not only at the high school data, but also some relevant community data would be good to do. So that's why I included that there for you. And I also wanted to share an update, because I sent last night some information about our current census within our school district, as well as our high school. And we're seeing that shift just a little bit daily. And we know, because this is only our second day of school, that the shifts that we are seeing are based on what's happening in the community, because we know that our students are part of family groups. They're also interacting in the community, as do our teachers. So we've got some census there to let you know that today we had 6 positive cases in Joplin schools, with 2 of those being employees. No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. 2 employee positives, 6 student positives. And then we had 0 employees at the Joplin High School, which was part of that too, and 2 students are part of that 6 at Joplin High School, because I think some of the metrics that have been proposed look specifically at how many and what their percentages are at the high school. So there is that information for you. And I also want to update, because we did a broad guesstimate as to what our combined total population would be at the high school. And we had said 2030 in your board packet, and with what we're looking at today, it looks like it's going to be closer to about 1,900 with the combined AB and the employees, because we've had more shift to virtual than we first anticipated, and we're not including the virtual students in that count. And we know that these numbers are going to get cleaner as we go through the next week or two. Usually it's after Labor Day before enrollment starts really settling down. So that just kind of sets the stage for information for you to consider. And the proposal, as was proposed by our board member, is in your board packet. And so we would just ask that you consider the full import of this request, the timing of that, and if it seems that there's more data or more discussion that the board would like to have, we're open to having a work session to further look at that.
Would you like me to read the recommendation of the board member?
Certainly, or I can do that.
Whichever I do.
So the suggested metric for the return at the high school that was presented to administration is as follows. After the first 3 weeks of school, beginning September 14th, if daily positive cases remain below 1% of total building population for 14 consecutive days, students should return to in-person learning. This is excluding students that opted for 100% virtual at the beginning of the year, as they have committed to this learning plan for the first semester. If an uptick starts after returning all students to in-person learning, the district will have options to return to a partial in-person learning or 100% remote if necessary.
Thank you, Doctor. I would open this discussion, this matter up for discussion, and in doing so, I would like to say I really appreciate the passion that our board has shown for bringing our high school kids back to school. This obviously has no application below the high school level because they are all in school. So the question is how do you bring back the high schoolers back on a daily basis? And just for the public's understanding, because as a board member, I've received quite a bit of feedback on the issue, as I'm sure other board members have as well. The concern as a district, I believe, is that these folks matriculate through the building some, certainly more than elementary students, perhaps similar to our middle school students, but these kids, these students move around through the building, and when you have 1,900 students, 2,300 students, or the original number, but 1,900, there was concern from administrators that it would be very difficult to safely socially distance with them through the building. Throughout our country, school districts are wrestling with this issue. This is not unique to Joplin. And I want to congratulate our administrators for coming up with the plan that they've come up with, that we've adopted so far. And I want to thank the board members who are passionately pushing to get the kids back to school, because we all want to return to what we consider normal. You know, what we're used to having. You know, we feel like our kids are being cheated somehow because they're not getting a daily dose of one-on-one teaching with their teachers, with their students, you know, their friends, whatever. So we get it, we really do. And so it's a challenge. And so I open this to a discussion. I appreciate the metric which was presented, and I'll leave it there. Is there any comment to offer?
Dr. Gilbert, could you start with just how did yesterday and today go as far
Incredible.
as social distancing, traffic in the hallways?
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, we were able to socially distance kids in the cafeteria easily. And we're also in the hallways, it's a marked difference. And classrooms are significantly smaller. The level of comfort, I think, with everybody. Kids have been absolutely incredible about if they move, they put their mask on, you know, between passing and that kind of thing. Wherever they go, they put their masks on, and everybody's been super compliant, and it's been 2 incredibly great days. Yeah, it's been great to have the kids back, and I think they're excited to be back.
That's great news. I mean, I'll share, when we talked about this last time, we were looking at what are other districts doing? What does the state recommend? What does CDC recommend? So I reached out to some other schools, Bentonville, Jenks in Oklahoma, which is a similar size. They tied theirs to their city's plan. When they got to phase 3, step 2, they returned. They'll return. They haven't yet, but Springfield didn't have a plan of returning. MSBA said that there's not anything out there. There is a metric out there for closing a building, and Dr. Moss had shared that. It came from the Missouri Center for Health Excellence. And it says if you get 5% positive in a building in 1 day, or 4% in 2 consecutive days, or 3% in 3 consecutive days, that you should close that building. And that was based off the flu in 2019. There wasn't a metric for that of when do you return those kids back to school. Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? What is the life cycle of the flu? So that didn't have anything available. I had the opportunity to meet with the contiguous districts, Carthage, Neosho, Seneca, Diamond. I don't think Carl Junction was there, talking about the same issue. Obviously, those that are in full-time, they didn't talk about a metric to return because they didn't have one. And basically, nobody has gone so far as to say what is a normal level of illness, whether it's the COVID or flu or chicken pox or whatever it happens to be. There's not a metric to return. So reaching out, trying to find something that's similar. MSBA was also trying to find some other school districts that had a return policy, and nobody does. I mean, that's the difficulty. And my thought is, if 1% is the number, we're keeping 99% of our students out when 1% is affected. And I don't know if Ms. Cantwell knows of the 102 homeless, how many are those at the high school? I mean, there could be a portion there too. A lot of teenagers in our community are relying on us for a sense of normalcy. They're relying on us for food insecurities, relying on us for educational support. And I know it's just starting, and I haven't seen quite what the attendance is going to look like with the synchronized and asynchronized learning, if we're going to have the same learning opportunities for those that are not at home. I'll say the city has already agreed that they're going to have a third Thursday in September. This proposal has kids returning after that. So again, following the city and their guidance of, let's say, being more open to socialization. the good news is and maybe I'm overly optimistic, and I'm glad it was 2 great days, and at least giving it an introductory period to normalize the back and forth. Once that is seen, then we can see where we're going to be. But if we're not going to set up what does winning look like, getting our students back, then we just wait until we happen to meet, and then we say, okay, let's bring them back. So that's some of my thoughts.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with some of your thoughts in the sense that I was talking to a good friend of mine about this, and he's familiar with school districts, and his belief is if we maintain the AB program and we have success with it, will our view be that we should then therefore continue with the AB program because it is successful? Or could we read the AB program as allowing us maybe to be more aggressive and bring everybody back? And I think that's what it seems like some of us are pushing for, is this idea that when AB is working, when do you chance it not work? When do you chance being more aggressive on bringing students back? So in a neighboring district today, we learned that some teachers and administrators at a local school have had a little bit of an outbreak, and that is affecting their ability to maintain school at a lower grade level. And, you know, one thing that we don't talk a lot about, because it seems like our young people seem to, I don't know, do okay or fare okay with the virus, is the impact we might have, or the risk that we place our teachers and administrators in when we further advance our students into the halls, into the schools. And I'm mindful of them as well. I think that this is a very powerful, you know, I like the matrix that was presented. It's demanding. We remain below 1%. I mean, there's something about that seems inherently reasonable. The question that we have is, when we bring everybody together, how does that impact the risk to everybody and the spread of the potential virus? And my problem is I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure anybody in the room does. And so I'm struggling with it, to be honest with you. I don't know what the answer is. We're going to tell Dr. Gilbreth that, hey, buddy, we understand you can't socially distance once we bring everybody back, but it seems like whatever safety precautions are in place at the high school seem to be working. So let's double the population. And I don't know when to do that. And I don't know. It's a real struggle, and I think it's a great conversation that we're having. And I'm appreciative that it's on our agenda, and I don't know the answer. But that is the problem is when it works, when do we say that's good enough, and now we should add more flour to the batter? Dr. Moss, I know you don't really want to answer that. So for the board members, I mean, what has been presented is 3 weeks long enough? There's a dates specific. Positive cases remain below 1%. I'm not really sure exactly what that means. If I'm a student at Joplin High School and I test positive, who all leaves the building with me? Is it just my absence that we're counting, or is it my absence plus those that are in contact tracing with me?
It would be your absence. Those people that are at home on quarantine, if they were in close distance, will still be learning remotely, like they're going to be doing now.
Every other day?
Except they would do it full-time for the 2 weeks. The 3 weeks, that's more than twice as long as the CDC recommends for isolation. It's 10 days after, they change from 14 to 10 days after symptoms present. So you've got twice the opportunity to recover before being introduced back to the population. And if learning at home is equal to learning in the classroom, then being at home for 2 weeks should be equal to being in the classroom for 2 weeks. So we're not losing anything educationally with those quarantine students because they're still learning.
So we're essentially saying if 19 or fewer students.
Yep, at the same time. So
And not just students, but faculty.
faculty
and
also.
Oh, pardon me, yes. The entire population.
Yes,
of-
anybody that could be a transmitter. I mean, that's
Because
the
you bring-
janitor, that's the lunch lady.
Because
Our
you
lunch
bring up
guy.
a good point, you know, one of our campuses to the north did have to close.
Yeah.
And so they're not meeting at all the rest of this week, and time will tell whether they're able to open even next week. So you have to consider the impact of if faculty and staff are getting ill, because that's a little harder to overcome because of all the students then that they make result in quarantines because of that.
I agree. The problem is we're on day 2. You know, we're so early in this. And I appreciate trying to create objective, not subjective, metrics that we want to look towards. And, you know, to me, September 14th seems like it'll be tomorrow, but I don't know what to say. It seems like Joplin is doing a better job of staying healthy right now. I know that our numbers consistently fluctuate.
I think it kind of gives us a goal to achieve. You know, I would hope that we would not be A day, B day through the entire school year. But I think it kind of gives us a goal.
Yeah, I think that the fear for me is that if we abandon the AB when it seems to be moderately working, when you can contact trace better, so to speak, because you've got fewer people that you're contact tracing, and then you abandon it because things seem to be going well, what does throwing everybody back into the school building do to risk? Does it raise it significantly? And once it does, how does that affect contact tracing? You know, can our administrators effectively trace the contact tracing network with a larger school population? It's a challenge. I mean, it's
challenging. We can't keep our kids out of school.
And I mean, yeah, and well, I mean, and I don't think that we are keeping our kids out of school. I'll say that. And part of my problem is that I'm not the guy who has to do it. I'm not the guy charged with the responsibility of contact tracing and you know, trying to teach kids. I don't teach kids for a living. To the great fortune of every student in our district. So difficult conversations at a time when it's very challenging, but I certainly appreciate. I will tell everybody that I pushed the member for the metrics. That board member delivered, and I appreciate that greatly.
I might just add that under policy, it's the board's responsibility to develop goals for the educational programs. And I think we have a duty to do that, not only in just determining when our kids can get back full-time, but also how effective our current structure is and how we're going to measure that. Policy BBE talks about that, and that's has to be one of our guiding principles as we go through this.
And I thank you for bringing that to our attention. And part of my concern is when we bring things like that up, you know, Dr. Gilbert assured the board that Joplin High School is going to continue to teach its students and make available extra time for each student to speak with his or her teachers. And we don't know if the kids may perform better under this scenario or worse. I mean, I don't know kids might be better every other day than they were every day. I don't mean to sound absurd, but we simply don't know. We're trying to compare things that we have nothing to measure against right now. And I will also reiterate that I don't believe that a single board member ever voted with the idea that we were abandoning our educational duties to our students.
I know that, Jeff, you did a lot of research with schools and metric development. Dan Picaric did share with me an email about 30 minutes before we started our closed session meeting tonight. I haven't had a chance to look at that. It would appear that Johnson County, Kansas City area, as well as some St. Louis area schools are starting to put some metrics together, because if you've followed that news, a lot of them haven't started yet, or they're looking at exclusively virtual to get started, and I know each community has its different dynamics. What I did see in glancing at that was that it was based on community spread and community data, and they didn't have school metrics in there as far as just the building. They were looking at what's happening in the community, and that's what Dan had suggested in his email, is that we not forget, as we're setting this metric, to look at what's the community spread. Is it due to one large manufacturing facility? Is it due to just generalized spread? And are those rates going up? Are they going down? And then first and foremost, not forgetting hospital capacity, because if we do bring our teachers and, well, we have our teachers there, but we bring all the students together, because we've stated the 1% or less, are we going to have a bed if a teacher were to get it? He wants to be sure that if we then have an uptick, we've got local hospital capacity to treat those. So I think paying attention and getting some reports about what's happening in the community, in addition to what's happening inside the walls of the high school with that metric, would be important. So I do think flexibility in coming back and saying, okay, we didn't foresee this, or this is better than we thought, needs to be inherent in this.
Yeah, I met with Dan last week, spent some time with him, walked through what was happening in the community. He said a majority of what he was seeing came from tight-knit community contact and some manufacturing plants. And those are big breeders of spread. I would contest we don't have, that's not the typical population of the school. That we have 62 people that are active at the moment, and of those 62, are there 2 high school students? No, 6.
Are you talking about city, Jasper County,
City.
or Newton County?
City.
Okay, city right now has 62 positives.
Mm-hmm.
Newton County has 146, and Jasper County has 95.
Yeah, no, how many of the positives at the schools?
Oh, at the school, we had 7 yesterday, and we have 6 today.
Are those 6 more, or?
No, that's our current
So
count.
it's gone down to, okay. So 6, so we have a tenth of the cases in the city of Joplin that are attending our school. What's going to be enough? What's going to be, when are we, if we don't set a goal to send them back, what is that going to be? Is it going to be when a vaccine comes out?
That's the whole question. I completely agree with you. I think that's the whole conundrum. You lost me a little bit on the idea that, because I do think our high school is one of the most congested places to be in the city, like a manufacturing plant. And you actually, I think you stated that there was a difference. You said that there was a difference. Certainly, it's not a manufacturing plant.
No.
But you have as many or more people moving among themselves to me, it's highly congested. I mean, highly congested, and more so than any of these plants where you're seeing out.
But not the 15 minutes that they're talking about. The
Yeah, I
contact
guess I
tracing
don't-
is
I don't
15
know.
minutes.
I mean, well, when you put kids, you double the class size.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't imagine that they're not as close together as they are at a manufacturing plant, but I don't know. I mean, I'm curious, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not familiar. I did talk to a person who was managing the safety at a manufacturing plant locally, and they told that they were doing a fine job of managing the risks. And this person was extremely cordial, and I thought he was trying to be very helpful to our district, and I really appreciated that. I told him I thought it was different there because they might have shifts that kind of move together to lunch and come back to work, whereas in a high school, we're all kind of going everywhere between classes, then we're all eating together, and I don't think it's similar. I think it would be a greater challenge to manage flow at Joplin High School than at that plant, but I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. But I think that's this is exactly what the problem is. And I really like the 1% goal. I'm not sure I like it on September 14th, because I think that's like tomorrow, that it isn't tomorrow, but
It's 5 weeks.
it seems like tomorrow to me. It's what, 2-3 weeks?
That's 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks after, it's 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Oh, beginning September 14th is what.
Right.
Thank you. I mean, is that before we meet again? Or
There's a note in there.
when is our next meeting?
22nd, it would be.
22nd, so we
would meet before then
again
anyway.
before that. Yeah, I mean,
But could you pull the trigger on bringing students back to school on a Tuesday to come back on Monday? Is that enough time? How much time do you need
Yeah, we
to
could.
transition?
yeah, I think he's ready to pull the trigger.
I mean,
on-
from Tuesday and then to the next Monday?
Yeah, so.
Sure.
We
Okay.
could.
I mean,
And that honestly gives us a little bit more time, because the timing was the issue for me with being 2 days in.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
I mean, I want to support this.
Mhm.
I mean, to be quite frank with you, I mean, I just feel like there's this huge unknown that we're trying to make our way through, and it's a real challenge for me. And
You know, I think we're just kind of jumping the gun just a little bit. All these schools are just now getting back into session. And I think in another month, we're going to have a better understanding of what is happening across the United States with everybody going to school. Right now, we don't know. We don't know. Yeah, if we don't get any cases, great, we'll just dump them all in there. Can't social distance. Is social distancing an acceptable thing that we can't social distance? Is that a safe thing to do right now? I think we just need to wait and see what happens. I mean, I can't say, you know, I'd love to do this, but I can't agree to it at this point because I don't know what's going to happen. But I think we're going to find out in the next 30 days what's going to happen everywhere with this. And so, you know, and I don't know if it stays low and we put everybody in there, or how many people are we going to put at risk and what's going to happen? We don't know. Problem is we don't have any answers to anything. So it's just a matter of how much are you willing to roll the dice. And right now, I think I would like to see what happens. I want to get these kids to school, but I don't know what's going to happen. But I think in 30 days, we're going to have a good idea everywhere what's going to happen. But I just, you know, when I can't social distance a child, we don't know what's going to happen with this. You know, I'm just not comfortable with that. I think we've worked on this plan. It's going great. You've had 2 great days. I think let's see what happens over the next 30 days. And then, you know, and see what's happening everywhere else in the next 30 days. But I mean, this is great. I mean, I like this and would like to support this, but I don't have an answer for this. And I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in a week, 2 weeks, in a month. And I don't think, oh, everything's great, and then we put everybody in there, then chaos happens. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it won't, maybe it will. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the problem. I mean, that's just my feeling. I think we're gonna have a better idea 30 days from now where we stand everywhere and what happened in all these schools. I mean, I know Grove closed a school. I mean, it's just, you know, people haven't been open. There's all over, there's things that are happening. So I think in 30 days, we'll have a fairly good idea what's happened everywhere. But, you know, in all these schools that are opening, can they social distance? A lot of these schools have smaller students. Are they social distancing in these schools? Are schools open, putting kids not 6 feet apart and not social distancing the lunchroom and everything else? I don't know what's going on. I don't think everybody's scenario is exactly the same. You're comparing apples with apples. So I just think time will tell. I just don't have, I just can't jump and feel comfortable with this at anything at this point.
I still feel kids are safer at school regardless, whether it's, if we're just dealing with the coronavirus or we're dealing with all the other issues and the services kids can get and access while they're at school. If you create one-way traffic, which I know can be done at the high school, you don't have the cross traffic necessarily between classes. You can be creative with your lunch schedules. Some of the kids can eat in the cafeteria, some can eat in the gym, some can eat in classrooms. There are ways to be creative with those things. Every kid in the classroom wears a mask, and if you have a plastic partition around that person, I'm sure CDC probably says you still have to maintain your 6 feet distance. It doesn't make sense, but a lot of things don't make sense. But you're not going to be at risk of catching or spreading if you have those barriers. If you're using some common sense. So there are ways that we could be successful with a transition back to, a more traditional.
And that's a good point. CDC says 3 feet with a mask.
I've heard that as well.
A different metric. And I don't know how big the classrooms are. Is there 3 feet between anybody, or do you not have enough seats or space in the classrooms?
There is now. If we brought everybody back, there would be some places it wouldn't have.
If you brought everybody back and did 3 feet, would there be?
There will be classrooms that we can't get 3 feet.
No matter what. Okay.
No matter what. Yeah.
So with this activity going on, can we get attendance, regular updates on how well the online is working to see, is that going to make a difference if it's not going very well and they're not logging on during every classroom like they're supposed to? That puts more pressure on us to try and get them back.
I think you bring up I think everybody's got real valid points. One thing that Mike said that really resonated with me is we're going to know a lot more in 30 days. And I know everybody thinks that we're pushing things off whenever I say 30 days. But we're going to have a lot better idea about student frustrations and performance in 30 days. We're going to have a lot better idea about
teacher frustration,
performance, and COVID-19 containment or lack thereof. I'd like to see us have 30 days I think we'll look a lot smarter in 30 days than we do tonight. I feel like tonight I'm fishing without bait.
Yeah. And
I don't like that feeling, but I really respect the data that was presented. That's a matrix that I think is not unreasonable. But I just feel like why are we pushing on that when we've got, that thing's 30 days out anyway. Why don't we just wait 30 days, have our next meeting, and in the meantime, we will have so much more information available to us in September that hopefully we can vote with knowledge. It's kind of like taking a test that you haven't studied for. I would much rather have studied and have the material known to me than just kind of doing the old ABBACAD.
But you know the result. You know the result.
Yeah,
if it's less than 1%.
Yeah, but I don't know what the 30. I don't know if there's going to be additional reasons that I'm going to want to go back to school because maybe half the kids are simply not doing their work. And I'm going to say, well, that's not working either. Maybe that increases the reason I would take an additional risk. And I just don't have that information available to me tonight.
Sure, it sounds to me like we could really benefit from a work session.
Absolutely.
And not stay
and-
online, yeah, just.
We should
table it.
schedule one before our next meeting, and then
Okay.
share, and then we can intake the information, and then come back at our meeting and make an informed.
So let's do that. Let's plan on having
Do it in 2 weeks, then we have 2 weeks in school.
Yeah, I would like to have it maybe even 3 weeks out. I mean, we'd have that much more information, and then we could have it in advance of at our meeting, and we wouldn't be doing so much here as we are tonight. Is that okay? Is that okay, Derek?
Yeah, that's, 3 weeks be, I mean, that way we have some time
I think
under our
every
belt.
day we
so-
wait, we're gonna have that much more information, and if we could why don't we try to get our schedules together after the meeting through an email? We don't have enough work sessions, so I'll look forward to it, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys and continuing our passion for Joplin schools and our students, and our teachers, and our administrators, and our community. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Plus deltas.
Plus deltas.
Well, oh, pardon me.
That's the favorite part.
I've got a plus delta. Renumbered item number 8 was a plus delta for me. Thank you.
My plus delta is to the special ed department. Thank you for caring about our most vulnerable students. I appreciate it. And my other plus delta is to the leadership team. I know you guys have worked countless hours over summer to get this year going, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I
Somebody
wrote
give me
some
a delta.
pluses.
Huh?
I wrote some pluses.
Oh, golly.
At the beginning of the meeting, look at all the prestigious awards
Oh, my gosh.
that our faculty has garnered in the last month. And I think it really shows that people are noticing what excellent faculty we have. And the financial oversight and the health in looking at our financial statements and also our ability to keep our promise to keep our levy at the same rate when we could have, without a vote of the public, raised it, but we were able to not to, and also feel good about that. And I think keeping that at the current rate is a plus.
It absolutely is.
Got a plus for the folks that maybe felt like they wouldn't get to see the Joplin Webb City football game Friday. I found KSN is going to televise it.
Yeah.
So that's a plus that those people that maybe were disappointed are still going to get to see the Eagles play.
And
So
another
our
plus
destiny-
delta,
Friday.
Yeah.
plus delta to the finance department. When Lori asked Dr. Langford what our reserves are, and he said 40%, I remember the day where we were worried. And to hear 40% reserves is just like a sigh of relief. So thank you, finance department.
I'm sure there's a delta, but we don't want to talk about that.
I would move that we adjourn.
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn before we talk about deltas. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Mike, are you voting to adjourn? Thank you.
Are you staying?
Thank you, everyone.